Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Better Life with Jake and Paul. This podcast, we discuss just betting, sports updates, and obviously we'll just fuck around the whole time that we're doing it. Paul, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Paul. I guess the whole purpose of this podcast is just to make a little cash on the side. I've been watching fights, sports of all different kinds, and it's time to actually throw some dollars on it, put some skin in the game. So, that's the name of the podcast, Getting a Better Life.
Definitely. And so you introduced me to betting. So what is the website that we'll be using when we're doing our bets in this podcast?
So I live in Wisconsin, so I have to use MyBookie. I have to use an international website, so that's what the lines will be based off of. But you can always go to Fight Odds or whatever book you're comfortable with. I know there's all sorts of websites, like DraftKings is a big one that has play at individual lines and also fantasy as well.
That's a good idea. I mean, personally, I'll be using MyBookie as well, just because that's what you're using, and that's what I'm going to be learning how to use. Because I'm personally not that great at betting and sports betting and stuff, but since I've started to look into it and see more of it and watch more UFC and get more into the odds or whatever, and since moving to Vegas, it just seems like a more fun way to handle sports, in my opinion. So, the main sports that we're going to be handling mostly, Paul will be mostly handling the UFC side of things. I'll be handling more of the NHL side of things. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Jake Ryder. I'm a comedian here in Las Vegas. I run a podcast network called the Cloud Surfing Network, where we have 4 different shows on that network. And this is the 4th and newest show. So it'll be interesting to get this involved. And so, obviously, right before we go into anything else, is there anything else you want to add before we get started?
No, not at all. It's just it's a McGregor fight week, so it's fun to get into it. And this is usually the most exciting time for the UFC. Is whenever there's a giant, McGregor card, the casuals get in. I remember when he won against Eddie Alvarez, the cops had to clear the streets of Irish fans and stuff. It's insane.
Where was that? Where was that fight?
That was in New York. That was Madison Square Garden.
They had to clear the streets out? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, they're literally, the Irish fans are wild. They're in Abu Dhabi this weekend, so it's Fight Island. They have a very small crowd of only 3,000 people.
It's very small.
So, yeah, do you just want to get right into it? They're at Fight Island this weekend.
Yeah, basically, I'm pulling up MyBookie right now on my laptop here. So Fight Island, for those of you who don't know, Fight Island was an idea that came up by Dana White like a year ago when this whole pandemic thing started. And it sounds to me, just from what I was looking into, that somehow the Disney executives got involved and told him that he wasn't allowed to do that. How did that work?
So originally they were trying to skirt by on Indian reservations. And Disney stepped up and talked to a local congressman, I forget who it was, and nixed that whole thing. So Dana took the show on the road and jumped right over to Abu Dhabi, I believe it's Yaz Island, and they do some pretty intense COVID screenings there. You have the fighters fly in to some international spot like Vegas. They get tested, quarantined for 48 hours, get the results of the test, fly across the world, quarantine again, and then they're allowed to get out, train, meet with their coaches. But man, that's got to be a rough week.
So is it almost a whole week of not seeing anyone, or is it longer than a week?
So you have to quarantine for, I think, 2 days and get a negative test result, and then you're allowed to go see your coaches and train. But, yeah, you can already tell the results of it. This morning's weigh-ins were a mess. You had a bunch of guys missing weight. They had to reschedule fights.
Just for the record, the recording date right now is the 22nd. It's February, or of January, So, just so everyone knows, 2021, the 22nd, that is today. So, at the weigh-ins, you were saying that a lot of people missed their weight, and some people just didn't show up?
Yeah, so Hak Paras and Otto Zaitar just flat out did not show up, and they're claiming illness, and that happens, you're trying to cut a ton of weight, these guys are jet lagged from the flights in, and yeah, so now we have Arman Sarukian, who he missed weight himself by a pound. He's now fighting the steamroller Frabola from Sarah Longo's camp, which that's going to be a grapple fest. So it's going to be a fun fight.
So who is that? Who?
So Arman Sarukian, I think he's a young kid. He's like 23, 24 years old, and he went out there and he fought Islam Makhachev, who's Habib Nurmagomedov's cousin. You know, Habib, former lightweight champion, greatest of all time, possibly, and they're related. And Islam and him went to war, and for like a 23-year-old kid to go out there and do it against one of the best ever is insane. But you know, he won his last fight, and now he's getting a good spot. So they're going to give him the steamroller, and yeah, I think it's a good journeyman crossroads fight. So I don't know what the odds are, even if they have lines out for that yet, since the fight is like as of 6 hours ago.
Well, I'm pulling up the MMA right now on my bookie. Let's take a look at what that says. So, I don't see that fight on my bookie yet. So I think, yeah, like you were saying, they probably just don't have it ready yet.
Yeah, and they probably won't have that until tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, I would be looking to put him on a parlay. So I guess parlay to start is you know, you need more than one guy to win, and I like to do that. I like to create ladders, create like a team. So you start with like two guys you can't lose in your opinion, and then you just keep adding and adding, and then by the end of it, you'll have a 6-man team, and hopefully, if you get all those right, it could be a good night at the end. The last ladder I hit was Holly Holm a few weeks ago, I believe in November. That was a really nice $800 payday.
That's a very nice $800 payday. Holly Holm, so she's the one that, just for my own sake, she's the one that took down Ronda Rousey when Ronda Rousey had her comeback day, right? And
yeah, she's the Ronda killer.
13 seconds. It took like no time at all, and she was just on her ass.
But yeah, I mean, what else is there to say about the McGregor-Poirier? That's the star of the show. That's the crown jewel.
This morning with McGregor-Poirier, this was probably the first time I've ever seen McGregor not be cocky as a motherfucker during a weigh-in, because him and Poirier they were like weighing in against each other, and like high-fiving and smiling and hugging each other, and usually McGregor's like trying to fight the other motherfucker on the weigh-in stage. He's not really that kind. What do you think that's all about? Why is he being so generous right now? Just because he feels like he's on a level playing field again, or is it because he's just trying to protect his brand?
It's more so that the brand. The guy, everyone likes to call him, he's elder statesman Conor now. But no, I think he's got clothing, he's got watches, he's got whiskey, he's got a bunch of stuff, and we've seen the ramifications in the past when he was punching dudes at the bar and he got arrested and all those things. So he's dealt with the woes, and I think now he has finally surrounded himself with the right people. You know, quarantine probably did help Conor in a lot of ways, kept him at home. You can't be punching old dudes at bars if you can't go to the bar. So that's but
what was his incident when he threw the chair? When you threw the chair at someone's RV? Who was that? Khabib?
Yeah, so that was after the weigh-ins, and the fighters were on the bus going back to the hotel. And Conor shows up late, as always. Like, that's the one thing about Conor, is he always shows up late. Shows up late to press conferences, shows up late to everything. And he showed up late and had to chase down the bus, and I guess he thought throwing a dolly through the window at Rose Namajunas was a good idea. Like, 115-pound girl. Like, that Rose was terrified. She went out there and had, like, the best performance of her life that night. But, yeah, I mean, I remember Rose saying she thought it was a terrorist attack, and she, like, locked herself in a room, and UFC staff couldn't get her out for a few hours.
Really? Like, after the incident?
Yeah, well, people didn't, you have to, like, realize nobody knew what was happening. Like, you're going to see, like, a white guy with a beard throw a dolly through a window as you're driving away frantically in Madison Square Garden.
Right.
Like, nobody knows who that was. And I'm sure Rose turned her phone off and just hid, you know, in the hotel room. Not hiding, like, Rose is the gangster. She's the best ever. She's Thug Rose. But, like, man, that is so traumatizing.
Yeah, I wouldn't be a fan of it if someone threw a fucking dolly through my windshield. Like, by any means.
Yeah, right.
Like, well, I was telling you about that meth head here in fucking Vegas when I'm just getting gas, and he's just like, I know you guys are following me. I know you guys are following. It's like, oh, what are you? I'm trying to get gas, dude. What are you talking about? I'm not following anyone. Conor McGregor got a little bit of the meth head in him that night.
Yeah, but I mean, even look at like the UFC video game right now. It's half off. You can go and buy the $6 game for $30 right now, and it comes with the Conor McGregor update, which has his outfit from when they fought the first time in like 2015, 2014, I think it was. but where Connor had the cornrows and he had no tattoos and.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so over under on Poirier fight. Let's look at so in my bookie. Where is it? All right, we have an over under of 2.5. So.
Oh, it's definitely under. Definitely under.
Under 2.5.
Dude, yeah. So what that means is it's going to go under 2.5 rounds.
Right.
So I don't think this fight gets out of the second. Like there's,
who do you think gets it right
I
away?
like Poirier, but if you look at his Habib fight and you look at a lot of his fights in the past, he does kind of get out in and out really quick. Like same with the Alvarez rematch that he had. Yeah, everyone can point to the Gaethje fight and the Hooker fight, and those went long. But I think Connor's such a sniper and Poirier is such a madman that Poirier is going to try to go out there and do something right away. So I would definitely, and even the odds are reflecting it, that minus 180 at almost 2-1 odds with this fight is not going to make it to 13.5 minutes.
I'm just thinking,
or 12.5 minutes.
I'm just thinking more. Well, you're saying that Poirier is more of like a aggressive run at him, and Connor's more of a sniper. I think Connor is a sniper, but I've seen him be super aggressive. I mean, I'm definitely not as well versed in the UFC, but don't you think he's going to be just as obnoxiously aggressive towards Dustin Poirier?
Yeah, so that's Connor's thing. He's a master of range, where he's pressuring forward, but he's waiting for you to make a mistake, and it's that kind of getting you to be uncomfortable and getting someone to react. I mean, look at the Aldo fight, and that 13-second knockout. He's literally standing super wide, and then he's moving distance in, and Aldo comes in with a hook, and Connor's just not there and KOs him. And that's, Connor, initially he was throwing kicks, and it's like you got a lot of analysts saying that Connor's going to go back to his kicking game, and Connor's been training with his Taekwondo coach, and it's just like, I don't think so. Like, I think Connor took the Floyd Mayweather training, his boxing, and he fell in love with his hands. And that's better. Like, he is a sniper with those hands, and I think that's what the game's going to be. And I think Poirier is going to come out, and Poirier is going to try to shift on him, and he's going to try to make it a little dirty, but I think by doing that, he's going to walk into something clean.
So you think Poirier is going to walk himself into his own death cycle here?
Yeah, like even in the first fight, Conor was leading him into his left hand the entire time and clipped him right behind the ear. And everyone was saying, like, oh, it was a punch behind the head. It was a punch, in the back of the head. But when you're standing, you can lead people into that, and he just ducked clean into that overhand.
So with the first fight, I'm just looking it up right now. So this rematch is more like so either way. So if Dustin wins this fight, it's gonna be like ridiculous, basically.
Yeah, superstardom. I mean, he's like a 6-1 underdog right now.
Because he lost the first fight too. It looks like.
In the first fight, that was the hype train. Conor was, oh my gosh, when Conor first joined the UFC, they downed the white for him in Boston. He KOs Brimage. He goes out there and murks Brandao.
Those were crazy days. When he first showed up, the UFC was wild.
Oh man, I mean, did Dana even know what he was getting himself into when he had Conor in his car and he's driving down the strip and he's flying down the road? Like, did Dana have any idea what was about to happen?
I saw Dana at Smith's the other day here in Vegas. He just shops at Smith's like anyone else. He'll just be like buying bread and shit. He'll be walking by. It's like, oh shit, that's Dana White. That dude's worth millions of dollars.
Yeah, but the other sort of co-main event this weekend is Chandler, and that guy comes from Bellator MMA, and he's probably one of the greatest non-UFC fighters at lightweight. And so this is one of the reasons that people love these kind of cross matchups is it's like a call to like DC and Marvel Comics. Like it's they could never fight each other. You could never have Spider-Man versus Superman, right. And that's kind of what we see now because you have the UFC and Bellator, and Chandler is the best in Bellator, and he's finally getting his chance at 34 years old to get over to the UFC, and they're throwing him into the deep end of the pool.
So, is Bellator at all related to the UFC, or are they completely separate entities?
So there are a lot of feeder organizations like Invicta. Invicta is a really good feeder organization for women's fighters. So they go through Invicta. If you do well there, you're going to go to the UFC. But then there are competitor leagues like Bellator right now. And Bellator is probably the only big, and like ONE FC, I guess. But no one really knows how many people are watching ONE FC, and that's like a totally different conversation.
Never even heard of it.
Yeah, apparently ONE FC has 1 billion people watching their fights every weekend.
Shut the fuck up. No, they do not.
That's what Chatri comes out there and says. He says they're the most popular.
I've never heard of it. I've never heard of it. That does not make any... 1 billion? I mean, the Super Bowl doesn't even get that. So how the fuck are you getting that?
Nice, dude. Yeah, so it's almost, it reminds me of the Pride days when, Dana White was shopping Chuck Liddell over in Japan. And I remember he put $500,000 on Chuck to win the Pride Grand Prix, and Chuck won and KO'd Alistair Overeem. It was just, I don't know. So it's been a while since we've had all these cross matchups. I mean, Ben Askren was the last fighter from Bellator, and Ben Askren lit the UFC on fire for getting knocked out in 5 seconds.
Was Dan Hooker ever in the Bellator, or has he always been UFC?
He's always been in the UFC. He's been in the UFC for years. He trains with Israel Adesanya out of City Kickboxing in New Zealand.
Right. No, I've heard of his name before. I mean, like I said before, UFC is not my biggest strong suit by any means, but I have heard it's hard. It's like saying you don't know who Brett Favre was. You don't even have to watch football to know that name. They're around enough to be like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is what's going to be hilarious. Just probably further down the show, we're going to have amazing takes on the NFL, and neither of us played any sort of football outside of high school. Right. So it's going to be great.
No, we were so good in high school. We could just talk about the glory days. We can talk about how my entire senior season was sidelined from concussions and the torn knee. We can talk about that.
Oh my gosh.
That was my favorite.
But yeah, I mean, I guess to go back to Chandler, Chandler's got a lot to prove though, because these Bellator guys have a history of getting served by the UFC, because Dana does not want Bellator to be on equal playing fields. They always want their brand to be bigger, a little better. So it's like when Eddie Alvarez came in from Bellator, he gets murked by Donald Cerrone in his first fight, thrown into the deep end of the
very first.
Will Brooks goes out there, loses 3 fights in a row, cut. Zach McCloskey loses 2 fights in a row, cut.
Who decides if who stays and who's cut? Does Dana White decide that?
So walking papers are really weird in the UFC. Like sometimes you could be like Otto Zaitar and not show up to the weigh-ins, and then hand your wristband to one of your friends, and then you break COVID protocols and they cut you immediately.
Just for being a piece of shit.
But yeah, so that's the thing. If you lose 3 fights in the UFC, you're pretty much gone.
Okay. So 3 fights back to back, or 3 total, you're gone.
Back to back.
Okay. So, okay, good. Because I was like, if you're 42-2, you don't deserve to be cut after your 3rd loss.
But yeah, I mean, I would say the best transfer from Bellator would be Ben Askren, and you know that dude, Funky Ben, wrestling all over the place.
Yeah. When is his next fight? He's not fighting. When is his fight? He's
he is retired.
He's done totally?
Yeah, he had a hip surgery. I don't know if he had like a hip replacement or what happened to his hip, but he's cooked.
I did not know that.
Yeah, good for him. Like, he really made a bag of money and went out there and did everything they wanted to do. He beat Robbie Lawler. He put on a great show, and yeah, I mean, he got knocked out in 5 seconds, but you could argue that really made him more famous than his entire career.
Do you think Bellator, like, if a Bellator athlete goes over to the UFC and does very well, do you think Bellator wants them back at some point, or like, what do you think that's all about?
No, I think Scott Coker just sits back and smiles and lets Dana just explode.
Oh, just because it's one of his guys? Do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, and if we were to talk about like how big Bellator is compared to the UFC, like what is it, like a Walmart to Target type situation where it's like not as big but still pretty big, or is it more of like a Kmart to Walmart type situation?
I don't know if I would call it a Kmart to Walmart, but I mean, I've been to Bellator events, and I went to a Chandler fight when he lost to Print, which one? Oh my gosh, I totally forgot who he was even fighting. But yeah, I saw the Chandler fight in Illinois. But then there's nothing like a UFC event.
Right.
Like if you should go to a UFC event when things are back to normal, whatever back to normal means from COVID, they show up 2 hours early. I made my girlfriend go 2 hours early, and we're having Modelo's out there with the Octagon girls, and you can get pictures. And Wonder Boy was there. And I remember looking at Wonder Boy and sizing him up, and saw the belt, like the championship belts there with the rubies in it. And it's just a cool experience compared to Bellator, where I guess they're like selling T-shirts.
So it's more. So it's almost like, to me, like when you go to an NHL game, like, okay, for like the Boston Bruins, I'm a huge fan of them, obviously. You go to one of their games, it's pretty sweet. The garden's really cool, but if you're here in Vegas and you go to a Golden Knights game, I mean, it's like a fucking Cirque du Soleil production before the event even like. There's a cannon. There's knights that fight each other on the ice. There's like parades. It's the coolest shit ever. Like one of these games here, the knights don't even have to win. And everyone's just so far drunk and plastered, they don't even realize the game's over yet. They're just still partying in the stands. It's
gosh, that's going to be what it's like when McGregor comes in. It's going to be probably wild whenever he does make it back to the States. Connor's talking about doing 2 more fights after this. I'm sure he wins tonight, but on Saturday.
And so he wants to come back to Vegas for those last 2 fights?
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if Connor just starts going Ali territory, where he just starts traveling the world. He's fighting in Japan. He's fighting all over the place.
Right. Well, he's fucking world renowned. I mean, he can't go anywhere without everyone knowing exactly who he is.
Oh my gosh, that's why I blocked it out of memory. It was when he fought Pitbull's brother and got knocked out in a minute. That's why I didn't remember who Chandler fought over. Yeah, I blocked that from memory. Yeah, I forgot that. That was a crazy series because Chandler knocked out his older brother, and then featherweight, bro, he's also a champ. Bellator has the Pitbull brothers, and both of them are champions. They're both one's 145 pounds, the other 155 pounds. And Chandler knocked out the older brother, and then Patrici comes in and starches him in a minute right before my eyes. And just, you never just going home, and I'm like, oh, it's not even midnight.
That's funny the way he just starches him.
Just like I really remember looking at my watch and being like, "Wow, it is really early." Like,
so in regards to the women fights, we have Marina Rodriguez and Amanda Ribas and Jessica Ai and Joanna Calderwood. Calderwood. It looks to me like, and this is just what I'm saying, but it looks like Jessica might be the Jessica Ai. Is she the fucking... Seems like she might be a rock star here.
Yeah, that's actually funny. A lot of people are picking her, and I don't know. It could be my bias because of the last time I was at a UFC event, I saw Valentina Shevchenko kick her in the head, and that woke me up. I was like half asleep because I had been there like 2 hours early. It was the second to last time night, probably like 10:30. It's like 8 hours, and I just hear what I thought was a baseball bat in the ring get cracked. And it's the eye is just on the ground, and it was so scary because they you know how they do the ceremony where they raise the hand, you're like, winner by knockout, Bruce Buffer. I was still on the ground, and they are announcing her as the winner to the side of the cage.
So, because it was just like...
Yeah, she had been out cold for probably like 4 minutes.
That's dangerous. So
yeah, it's scary.
So for people who don't know, you used to work in an ambulance. If you haven't heard, I have an episode with you on my other podcast called Cloud Surfing. And if you want to hear more about him, it's a good episode. Talks about a lot of things. But when someone gets knocked out like that, what does that do to your is it the longer you're out? Is it do more damage, or what does that do when you're actually knocked out?
Well, so it's obviously anytime you don't have oxygen to your brain, that's not great. And then the blunt force, the swelling, your brain, it's a very soft sponge, right? And it's just held in your skull and bounces all over the place. But you got to think, they're cutting weight, so it's like drying that sponge out. And then, oh my gosh, poor Jessica. But the big thing is axonal shearing is what I've read. is the latest in concussion, CTE, and what that's like is it's like the wires in like a power outlet. So you've got like the red, the yellow, and the white, right? Those wires. Well, imagine if you kept them plugged into the TV, but you just stepped on the wire, right? Like if the wiring on the inside is going to get stretched a little bit.
Right.
That's what's happening at the cellular level in these kind of wicked concussions, is the wiring of the brain is getting stretched, and that's not great for cell-to-cell signaling and essentially all the functions of the brain. But neither of us are doctors here. But for
well, no, we're not. You are a first responder, so I mean that's why I'm just wondering, like, because I'm sure you've come up on scenes where people have had traumatic brain injury and you've had to do something about that. Like, what do you do when someone has a traumatic brain injury?
Well, so I had a lot of so I worked on a private ambulance, and we had a lot of events that would go on. So I didn't work with like a fire department or anything like that. So I would go to like football games that were semi-pro or high school even, and there would be quite a few injuries. Kids would get their bell rung, and yeah, I mean you make them comfortable is probably the best way of putting it, as long as they're still functional, they got their eyes open. But make them comfortable, keep the lights down, get them to a CT scan right away, and then hopefully there's no active bleeds
so
going
if they have
on.
like an active brain bleed, they have to cut their skull open, and they have to use the cauterizer and heat it up so it gets. Or is that how that works, or how does a brain bleed? How do you solve that?
Yeah, so I mean, we're really getting into the weeds of this,
right.
But yeah, you can depressurize for sure. It's very similar to almost like when a lung collapses or whatever, and you've seen the movies of the guy with like a ballpoint pen, he pokes through the seventh rib, and the lung inflates again. They can do stuff like that. They can remove sections of the brain. A friend of mine actually had that happen to him, where he fell out of a golf cart, and the golf cart rolled on top of him, and they had to remove a part of his skull.
What?
Yeah.
So he has part of his skull isn't there?
For a little bit, but then they put it back in.
Okay. Oh, I was like, holy shit, dude, this guy's gonna just get hit by like a piece of ice falling, and he's gonna die. Like, okay.
Yeah, they have like these little beanies, like these specialized caps that you can wear. They're antibacterial and stuff, but they'll just whoop right on top of your head.
It looks like he had I'm just reading Google, a craniotomy for a brain bleed, where they remove part of the skull, and the surgeon then applies a superheated device to cauterize the bleed, and then they put the skull back together. Dude, just. Okay, do you think any of that happened to Key or to Jessica?
No.
No?
No way. But back to what I'm actually good at, knowledgeable on, is Calderwood. JoJo Bad Mofo. That's her nickname, Dr. Nebel. She is a crazy volume striker, and she's a tale of two girls, like really, where sometimes she goes out there and she executes an insane game plan. She's super focused. She'll deliver jabs, front kicks, and work hard in the clinch. And other times you just wonder why she's out there dogging it with these girls. Like she went out there and tried to dog it with Andrade. She went out there and tried to grapple Jennifer Maia, who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and gets submitted in the first round. And but I mean, going back to that Maia fight, the reason she took that fight is because she wanted to stay active. She was on Fight Island, I'm pretty certain. And she wanted to take another fight. The champion wasn't available, and she said, okay, bring on the next comer, and she lost. And, she's a gamer. She has her mentality. She's always training. She's not someone that gets out of shape. And this 125-pound weight class is good for her size and frame, where I think Jessica I might be a little undersized. But the thing about fighters like Jessica I is they're more like referendums on the other fighter. Like, Jessica I is a very known commodity. We know what she's going to do. She's got good boxing. She's got good grappling. And if you're a super athlete or you are very tailored in one skill set, you can get past her. Like, Shevchenko is just a master striker. Kicked her in the head, it was over. Then you got Cynthia Calvillo. Calvillo is a really good grappler and just worked her in the clinch and then worked her in the very inside parts of the game. But Jessica I is beating girls like Caitlin Chikagian, who is kind of like a better version of Calderwood. But yeah, I mean, that's that last time I was in Chicago, I saw Calderwood and Chukagian duke it out, and Chukagian won. But man, Calderwood threw Chukagian. That was the hardest slam I heard that night, which was insane for an 125-pound girl.
So,
but yeah, and then
so so you think Calderwood's got the edge over I?
Yeah, I think it's also a story of career trajectories where it's like Jessica Eye, she's challenged for the title, she's kind of beaten the who's who, she's lost to some girls. She's a very known commodity. She's going to have a job at the UFC for a very long time, like we talked about people getting cut. If Jessica Eye loses this fight, she's not getting cut.
Okay.
Like, she's going to be around. She'll be around with test contenders. And if Calderwood wins, when you launch her, you put her into a cannon and you fire her to Valentina Shevchenko, the champion. So, that's also assuming that Andrade doesn't want the fight right now. Who even knows what's happening with that fight?
Well, why would she not want the fight?
I don't know what's going on with Andrade and Valentina right now. They should be scheduled. That is like the next logical matchup, but I haven't heard any traction about it. They haven't announced it.
I'm on that. What is that website again that your friend made? Could you say that real quick?
It's not my friend, but it's the one I go to all the time. But the nextufc.com is excellent. It's mobile. They've got computer, but it's fantastic. I think a Reddit user made it.
Here, I'm gonna put it on the screen.
Okay.
The nextufc.com. This is so great. I need you to show up. I think I might have it blocked on my...
Well, yeah, so the next fight, just to not have dead air here, is Amanda Ribas versus Marina Rodriguez. Ribas is a huge favorite, and that comes from two reasons. One, she's amazingly talented. She is an expert grappler. She's got good hands. She's strong. She's one of those girls that you look at her and you're like, is she an Olympian? Like, oh my gosh, she must have been trained since she was 6. Like, you can't say that about a lot of people. Like, the skills are developed. They're refined. They're all there. And the other reason, the bigger one, I think, why is because she smoked Paige Van Zandt. And Paige Van Zandt was she was kind of the very popular girl in the weight class, and hundreds of thousands of Instagram followers, and Ribas made pretty short work of her, and submitted her pretty quick.
Your Instagram followers don't help you in the fight. So speaking of, so there's only 2 female fights this weekend, right? We've got Jessica Eye and...
there's another one that I like, Juliana Pena versus Sarah McMahon, and I like the dog, Juliana Pena, and the line's actually reflecting that too. I remember seeing it last week at plus 120, and now she's down to plus 100, so the odds makers are giving her a little bit more respect, and I think she should be the favorite. I would put it at like minus 140 and still be comfortable betting that.
With Pena at minus 140?
Yeah, that's how I think the fight should go. I mean, Sarah McMahon is 40 years old.
Yeah, but... okay. So,
no offense to 40-year-old moms or anything, but this is the highest level of fighting. And Pena is a mother herself. Pena is 31 years old. She won the Ultimate Fighter. Yeah. She's looked bad in fights, but I mean, sometimes that happens. Sometimes you're just not prepared. You're not ready. But I think Pena is in a good place. I think Pena is in a position to go out there and win this. And I think people are sleeping on her because she had a bad performance against Jermaine Durandamy, who was the last title challenger at 135 pounds. And, I'm not too concerned. I like Pena. Again, this is betting on these fights are all coin flips.
Isn't McMahon a pretty well-known name for being successful as well?
McMahon was a silver medalist at the Olympics, and she had a huge storyline of when her and Ronda fought, where Ronda got the bronze medal in judo, and McMahon had the silver in wrestling, and then Ronda goes out there and TKOs her with a knee to the body.
Oof.
And since then, McMahon is she's 1-2, lost 1, 1-1, lost 2. And she's done well, but the girls that are really good, the girls that are in the top 5 are able to squeak past her.
Right.
Her stand-up, she's got good stand-up, she's developing, she's an Olympian, so even though she's 40 years old, she's always making improvements, which is crazy. But, she's a mother of 2, at 40. I hate to say it, I hate to be ageist or anything, but I think the odds makers really are going to see this line
I wouldn't
crash
say you're
into
being
the favorite.
ageist. I'd say you're just recognizing reality at this point. You know, that's the one thing that's getting weird is like you can't even acknowledge what's right in front of you anymore without so hey, you can't. She's older. It's like, well, you know, yeah, age is a real thing. Like for me, I can't run a mile in 4:48 anymore. I fucking can't do that. When I was 17, I really could. Right now, I don't even know if I could run a mile. Like it's a real thing, man. You grow up.
Yeah, well, I think you also have to, this isn't basketball, this isn't badminton, you know, you have to be, like, really careful, because we kind of joked about Jessica I earlier, but man, that's a real bad head injury, getting kicked in the head, you know, these people are risking it all for our entertainment and for us to make money on the side, so it's just kind of, like, this is all, it's not a good thing, but the way I see it is you want to beat down the bookies. The Vegas odd makers are disrespecting Pena, and that needs to be punished. Like, that's how I see it, is that, you know, all these fighters are warriors. They all go out there and they deserve to be respected just to walk in there and put the gloves on. But for Vegas to go out there and say Pena is plus 100 to McMahon is insane. So you gotta beat down those bookies.
What's weird right now is going into like the MGM, which is like the biggest sports book in Vegas, and it's empty, dude. There's no one in there. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be weird, and then also seeing the scar of it too. Like, are people going to go back and sit there with a cigarette and hit the slot machines hour after hour? You know, I don't know.
I don't know either because even small shows where I was booked for just like a 30-minute set at the MGM, and it's not like as big as I'm not sitting center stage. I'm just in the casino area talking to like the group of people in front, and it got canceled because not enough people were there. Like 4 people were in the entire casino, and so it's just like this is not worth it. You know, still got the cancellation clause, but it was just like, dude, it's just don't even waste your time. Just here's the money, bye.
Well, yeah, I mean, I also see, pandemic is kind of a restart too. Like when online poker came out, and you had all these guys, like the hard table poker players, everything that had hundreds of hands in person on the table, reading the dealer, and they had really good personal. Like you had the bluffers, and you had the guys, wearing the shades, and then out of nowhere, these online poker guys who have hundreds of thousands, 10 times more experience because of the speed of online gaming. They just came out there and wrecked shop. And now you're watching these poker tournaments literally all filled with online players. Right. And I think that's what's going to happen is gambling is moved to this kind of online forum. I mean, even, look at us, trying to make a little money on the side.
We're trying to make a little money on the side, but at the same time, I wouldn't have a network if I didn't enjoy doing this. I really enjoy multimedia and putting out messages and talking to people and just getting, you get every once in a while, you get some emails of people saying that your mother should probably get cancer and die because she didn't like what I had to say or something. That happens, but, you get that every once in a while and you just kind of keep moving. I love doing this shit. I absolutely love podcasting.
Yeah, we've got scheduled. The UFC is, I think they have to do 40 fights a year so they can maintain the broadcast bonus. That was like last year, from I think July to November, the UFC didn't miss a weekend. The UFC is going through. I know a lot of sports. The Olympics are going to get canceled this year. Like it's, if there's one, show in town, it's the UFC.
I hope not. I really hope that they don't cancel the Olympics this year. Fuck, that would suck.
Yeah, could you imagine being an Olympic athlete and you just keep getting postponed? You're living on $1,000 a month stipends.
Well, that sounds a lot like being a comedian who keeps getting his shows postponed and he's living on $1,000 a month of unemployment. That's what that sounds like to me.
Yeah, but they're running 448 miles, Jake.
Yeah, well, I used to run a 448 mile. if there's a video of me running it once, so I think that counts. There's video proof that I could do it, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I know NBC and CBS switched broadcasting rights for the NFL just to have, I don't know the exact scheduling of the Olympics, but I'm pretty sure NBC gave the football rights up to CBS just so they wouldn't have to compete with the Winter Olympics. as well.
Speaking of NBC, we can move into the NHL a little bit because the NBC and NBCSN has taken over 100% broadcasting of the NFL. So, like, if you don't have, like, for instance, there's a lot of people who pay for NHL TV where they're supposedly able to have whatever game that they want, but then when NBC got the rights, they wrote that out of the clause, which is pretty interesting because I don't see how that's fair. Like, you could pre-buy all the games, and then later on the NHL can be like, well, yeah, but we're gonna sign another deal, and then now all of you don't get to watch games. Seems like bullshit to me.
Yeah, well, hockey is just so foreign to me. I have no picks. I mean, I was listening to these two guys talk about the worst change in hockey was the two-line pass. So like, when they got rid of the two-line pass rule, hockey fell apart. And I'm like, I couldn't even tell you what that is.
I disagree. So it used to be a rule where you would have to, like, if you passed over two lines, like let's say the blue line and then the center ice line. That's a penalty. You can't do that. That's how it used to be. And then they got rid of that because it was like every time someone passed the fucking puck, it was a goddamn stoppage of play. And everyone was like, can you stop doing that? Like, we're just trying to watch the game. And so I would totally disagree with that. That's a pretty old school idea. I mean, that's the same idea where when USA Hockey got rid of where you can't ice the puck anymore. So it used to be if you were on a penalty kill and you only had 4 players on the ice and they had 5, you were allowed to dump the puck all the way down the ice because you were down a person. Well, that kind of defeats the purpose of being on a fucking power play. Like, if the other team can break the rules now to beat you, it's like, well, what is the point? Why are they being penalized then? You know, so in my opinion, if you're down a player, the rules are all the same. You shouldn't get special treatment because you committed a penalty. And so to me, it's just an old school way of thinking. I think it's it's going to cause more penalty. It's going to cause more goal scoring, and it's going to cause more action on the ice, and more people are going to watch for that. That's just me. I mean, so today there's no games. Tomorrow there's no games. Sunday on the 24th is Detroit and Chicago. They're playing at 12:30 on NBC. I've got Detroit at 4, Chicago at 3. On Tuesday is the next game, Islanders versus Washington. I've got the Islanders at 3, Washington at 5, and that's because obviously Washington's going to beat the Islanders. Don't fucking give me attitude, whoever's out there. Oh, the Islanders, they're having a good season. Oh, are they over in their new Coliseum that can't even, like, that the ice doesn't even stay frozen in their new Coliseum. Do you know that? Their new arena.
Weird, Jake.
What's that?
This is all you. Just gotta love it.
No, the Islanders are. Here's the thing: they go to Brooklyn, this new fucking arena. It holds less people, and it has a car where people used to be sitting. Like, now there's just vehicles for sale. Like, what the fuck is that about? People are trying to watch the game. They got fucking advertisers on their helmets now on the sides. They don't have their team name on their helmet anymore. It's starting to piss me off. Like, what the fuck are you doing? What are you doing? You guys don't have enough money? Seriously, you had to put in salary caps because your guys were making so much money that it was unbelievable. You guys are going to start... It's like $3 million more. What's $3 million to you? Fuck off. Okay, I'll move on to the Wednesday game, Chicago versus Nashville. Nashville at 4, Chicago at 2. The reason I'm saying that is because I really don't think Chicago is going to keep it up. I think by the time that they are done playing all these back-to-back games, by the time they get to Nashville, it's going to be, to me... It's going to be Nashville just kind of wiping the floor with them. Because if you look up the schedule here, Nashville hasn't played since fucking... Let's back it up. Like, almost since last week. Like, they've had time off. And the Chicago has not, to say the least. I just think Nashville's going to fucking come in and sweep the floor with them. And that's just my personal opinion. So I'm sure.
I guess my question to you is, I'm looking at your scores here, and like 7 goals. Like, so what does hockey have over/unders over at MyBookie?
Yes, they do.
Like, is this something we can see?
Yeah, let me go over to the NHL tab on MyBookie.
Because if you're confident that they're going to put those numbers up, I would just sit at home and root for both teams.
That's pretty much my plan. That's my plan.
Okay. Yeah, let's see. So the Blackhawks, Detroit versus Chicago has the over/under at 6.
Yeah, and I think they're going to score more than 6. Detroit and Chicago, you have 2 original 6 teams with goalies that are not on their fucking game. Their goalies are very much not on their game right now. If you watch the previous Chicago, the Chicago game and Detroit. Like almost every game this year has been super high scoring. It's almost worth it to bet over the fucking puck. Like if it's 6. 6 seems like it's a high number, but I don't. I think they're going to go over 6, personally.
Yeah, and I mean, it's both teams putting up numbers. I know basketball loves the over-under, where you just go up there and you're like, I think these guys are going to put up 240 points tonight, and just go out there and cheer every time someone dunks a ball.
Yeah, exactly. Well, here.
Well, yeah.
So today's games.
Let's see. Just to get more into my side of things, let's see what the lines are for the NFL. I bet they have some good props too. Like they got 4 props for the Buccaneers and Packers. So we've got. Okay, so they got 1 quarter scores, team scores, but no like individual, like Rodgers for 300 yards or something.
Well, first of all, did you watch the previous? Have you been watching at all? Any of the NFL games this year?
Yeah, this is probably the first time in many years I've actually been somewhat paying attention to it, mostly out of parody. I'm a Chicago fan. The Bears. I have to go out there and see what Trubisky does every single week. Sometimes he goes out there and puts Madden numbers up and throws for 3 touchdowns for 3 consecutive weeks.
Yeah,
and then other times he just
4 consecutive interceptions though. So you don't know what he's going to do. So what do you think? Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Green Bay Packers. What do you think is going to happen? I am going with Tampa.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, is the fix in on the Buccaneers? Is Tom Brady in Florida with a Super Bowl in Florida with the possibility of fans in the Super Bowl in Florida? That's craziness.
Because yesterday my selection was Packers 28, Buccaneers 21. That was my selections yesterday. I have since changed my opinion on that. I believe that it's not going to be 28-21 Buccaneers over the Packers. The reason I'm saying that is because if you're starting to go back through and you're starting to watch, like, a lot of the receivers on the Packers end are not catching the fucking football, man. They have Derrick Henry in the backfield. That's about as far as they're going to... Wait. Is that right? Did I say that right?
Yeah, I know. It is interesting. Like they played before, the Buccaneers put up like 45 points against them, and it's like, how did that even happen? And I know Aaron Rodgers come out and said that they had confidence issues, and that kind of what you allude to, dropping the ball and stuff. Like they couldn't get it. But sometimes these things happen in sports where it's just the greatest of all time, and Tom Brady just comes back for another ride into the sunset, and you just can't stop it. Like the fix might be in.
But I didn't mean Henry. I meant Jones, by the way, for everyone who's like, he's the fucking Titans running back. I know. I'm sorry. I fucked that up. For everyone wondering, I'm a Titans fan. I'm not. We're both from Wisconsin. I moved to Vegas. He is still in Wisconsin, unfortunately. One day you'll see him.
But let's jump to the next game, the Chiefs versus the Bills Mafia. Like, we got to be real careful because we'll burn our houses down if we say anything bad about the Bills.
You told me who your picks were for the Buccaneers-Packers game.
My final score for that is definitely, I don't think they're going to put up. So the over-under is at 52 points. I would definitely take the under. I think the Bucs, as of right now, kind of, from what I saw last week, they have a problem with scoring. Like, if New Orleans didn't feed them 3 interceptions, they probably would not have won that game.
Right.
So I think in New Orleans, they've got good defense, but nothing, spectacular. I know the Packers' run defense is not great this year at all. But I think even if you don't like the points, I know these over-unders are pretty crazy because Rodgers could pop off for 4 touchdowns, and Brady scores 4 touchdowns, and then you're at 56 points and you broke the over.
Right.
So that's possible. I would just go to money line on the Bucs. That's what I would feel confident in. The spread is set at 3.5, so the bookies want you to think about that field goal long and hard at the end of the game.
Well, they definitely do. That half is really bullshit. Half really. But
I've got it up right here. The over-under is at 54 for the Bills and Chiefs game, and I don't see that covering at all. So I'm going to take the under. I think it's going to be a low-scoring weekend.
I will take the under 100% on the over. 54 for the Bills and Chiefs? Get out of here. I
mean, Mahomes, he doesn't have an ankle.
Yeah, okay, but I've still got the Chiefs at 24 and the Bills at 14. That's what I've got.
Okay, yeah, so 38 points.
So what do you think the final score is going to be of that game?
I think it's something similar along the line. I don't know, man. I think it could be opposite. I don't know. I'm picking the Bills. Bills Mafia. We'll
Okay.
see me jump into a flaming table later.
John Roddy's gonna start busting doors. If you fucking
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the Chiefs is they have Andy Reid as their head coach, and that dude is a player's coach. That guy is a mastermind. He goes out there and he wins ball games.
Yeah, he's a great coach. He has excellent play calling.
Yeah, and so he's definitely going to bring it to that young quarterback in Buffalo, Allen. But, I mean, the Bills, you look at their schedule right now, they've won 8 games in a row. Like, that is a hot streak that can't be beaten. That's what playoff football is all about, is it's not about the record going in. It's to get to the playoffs and get hot. And the team that plays the best football is going to win. Like, that's why I think the Bucs, have yet to play their best football yet, and I think they could show that this upcoming weekend.
Okay, well, here you're writing that the Packers are blaming all sorts of confidence issues right now. What do you mean by that?
Well, just dropping the ball, and you've got Aaron Rodgers out there, and they ask him, like, hey, how come they scored 45 points against you in the last game? And he was like, oh, we just hadn't put it together. It was early in the season, like, all this stuff. I was like, I don't know, man. You guys played once, and, it's hard to beat a team twice. Like, the hardest thing in sports ever is to beat someone twice.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know. But I think Brady could be, immortalized. They could be building statues of him in Tampa Bay after this game.
I think that Brady went to Tampa in the first place to be closer to his vacation home. I think that's all it comes down to. He's like, well, my vacation home's right there, and my hot-ass model wife who makes more money than me is right there. And it would just be better for me just to be on the beach every day. Go fuck my banging hot wife, and then come play some football, make millions of dollars, still not as much as my wife makes, and then, go back to the beach home.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, sometimes things are weird in sports. Like, sometimes you just cannot, like the Bills being 8 games, like losing 4 Super Bowls in a row, but somehow being on this 8-game, win streak. Like, some teams are genuinely cursed. And I think, like, you look at Brady versus Drew Brees last week, where it's just Drew Brees has all the confidence issues in the world, and Brady looks like a supercomputer out there. And then at the end of the game, throws a touchdown pass to Brees' kid to rub it in.
Right. That was so... I never thought of it that way. To rub it in.
But, yeah, I don't know. Can you stop that guy right now? I mean, who knows? But yeah, I wouldn't say bet the mortgage on anything this upcoming weekend. But I think it's fun. Like, I think these matchups are fun. Like Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady for the NFC Conference. The NFL had, at the beginning of the season, was like, you're going to have Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady in the championship. The NFL would be like, so be it. Let it go.
So be it. That is the way it shall be then. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, and just let whoever is on that side of the fence just lose to the Chiefs in the finals in the Super Bowl.
So you're going with Bucs and Bills in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's what I'm picking, Bucs and Bills. I'm so nervous about Patrick Mahomes. Like his ankle, his head, like all of it. I don't know. I mean, the guy's a gamer.
Last night, when we were talking last night, I looked him up a little further. Jesus Christ. Did you see the hit where he bounced his head off the fucking ground?
Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm nervous. I mean, he didn't show up. He was walking on the sidelines funny. Like, he has a week, man. And I think, the Bills aren't dumb. They know that. They're going to bring the heat. They're going to bring blitzes. They're going to try to hit him down the middle gap and force him to drop back and run and move. And that's, that could be scary if you're a Chiefs fan.
Well, do you think that Mahomes is going to stay in the game the whole time, or do you think he might come out for the backup? Because I honestly don't know if they're going to keep him in very long if he makes a mistake in the first. I really don't think they'll keep him in after that.
Yeah, they're going to keep a close eye on him. I mean, I'm purely speculating at this point. But yeah, they're going to keep a close eye on him. I bet their second stringers taking some serious reps in practice right now. But yeah, man. The only other thing I wanted to touch on in the MMA side of things was Mahmoud Muradov. That guy is on the Mayweather team. He's on the money team. And, we talk about COVID and, people struggling to find training partners and people struggling to find, different ways to train. Like, people are renting garages to train, and stuff like that. Muradov is on the money team. Like, he's the only MMA fighter signed by Floyd, and that's big deal. Like, that guy has the greatest training partners. He won by insane he had a 4-punch combo knockout in his last fight. That was excellent. And he's fighting Andrew Sanchez, who's a journeyman, and the odds have definitely grew over this fight. I remember seeing this over at kind of the minus 120 range, and after the weigh-ins, I've seen it expand to the minus 140.
So why would Mayweather get involved in signing a UFC fighter?
Yeah, so it's actually an interesting story with Morata. So he started as security for Mayweather, where he was one of those big dudes that was following Mayweather around and punking McGregor.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's like a slight or like if they're friends or how close they are business partners, but Floyd, introduced him to the team. Like, 100%, if you go on Floyd's social media accounts on Saturday, you'll see a post of Murad wishing him luck and stuff. But yeah, I think that's a guy that Vegas isn't respecting the money team enough, which is hilarious. Like, this guy, I don't understand how he's at minus 140. Like, I would cap him at like minus 200 over Sanchez.
Yeah, he's only at -1 for. Yeah, so it almost does seem like they're just not. Is it because he's from like a boxing team that they're just disrespecting him, or is it what do you think that's about, or is it just because they truly believe he's not that good?
He has 4 losses on his record, and it's one of those things though where when you get to the bright lights and you get to the UFC level, like, you got to get used to it. Like, even the middleweight champion Israel Adesanya had some stinkers early. Like, he had a fight with Marvin Vettori that wasn't great. He had a fight with Brad Tavares where he dominated and he looked good, but he didn't reach the Super Saiyan levels that he's at right now. But yeah, and then finally my other one, and this is a no-brainer, but I think Khalil Roundtree might run through Pacquiao. Roundtree, he's a smart guy. He trains in Thailand. He knows his deficits. He's a guy who really knows himself. He got knocked out by Johnny Walker and then spent like months on end in Thailand working on his stand-up. He came out and like a different person, like a totally different animal. And he's fighting Marcin Pacquiao. And Pacquiao is kind of a karate fighter. Definitely likes to go in and out, kind of a Wonder Boy, Leo Machida type style. But at light heavyweight, at these kind of sizes, it just doesn't work well. Like, all these guys are fast, and the margins are so slim, and Roundtree's power is something else. Like, I think Roundtree kind of runs through them. And even the bookies are looking at this at minus 1.5 rounds. Right. Minus 180, under 7 minutes. Like, 7.5 minutes, you're not going to get Pacquiao 7.5 minutes.
Jesus.
Yeah, so I think that's the pick. I mean, even looking at the props right now, I see Roundtree is minus 240 for a knockout. So it's like, geez, you're going to bet minus 240? Like, I won. But if you like we said earlier, you kind of build ladders. You want to build those teams of like 3 to 5 people. So the team that I would recommend this week is, let's see, your dog money is definitely in Pena. You've got Pena this weekend. I like Yves Laurent. He's at minus 500, so that's kind of like not, saying anything special. I think he runs through Nick Runs. No disrespect to Nick Runs, but I think Yves Laurent, he's got 2 Eves in his name, and he's from Russia, and he's a wrestler. Like, do I have to say more? But yeah, so I think Pena dog money, if you can jump on this line, it would be good. Now, obviously, this podcast is being released a little later, so we'll have to see where the lines go and how we end up looking going forward. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to throw out some skin in the game, probably like $40 this weekend, see how it goes.
So when you're hearing this, it'll be on the 20. I think this is going to be on the 27th when this comes out. So what I'll probably do, I'm going to release this one today. I'm just going to launch it right away, and then we can start. We can record. If you want, we can record another one for the 27th, and we can just double up right away, and then get on the schedule afterwards, so we can get this out right away.
Yeah, and then you could, I'm free on weekends, I would work Monday and Thursday, so weekend content is where it's going to be.
Off the air, but yeah, so I'll have this episode up today. Today is the 22nd. I'll have it up before 5 p.m. Pacific time, so you guys can have time to listen to it, and make sure
so just a quick look ahead for anyone, who just wants to get in and what my initial thoughts are. I like Overeem. He's at plus 155. And so this is fights in 2 weeks. The UFC's taking a week off, so this is for February 6th, I believe. But yeah, I like Overeem. Overeem's last 2 wins have come via grappling. And Overeem has a sneaky good grappling game. He had it in Pride. He had guillotine submissions. He had a really, really good ground game. And he's been kind of in the later parts of his career establishing that again. I think Volkov is too big. He's one of those, the problem with being 6'10" is that you have these really long, lanky arms that people can grab onto you, and you just can't squirm out because you have so much length. And I think Overeem did that to Stefan Struve. And Stefan Struve is kind of a poor man's version of Volkov. Volkov knocked him out in a fight. That was a hilarious fight where Stefan Struve's 7 feet tall, Volkov 6'10", and those guys are in there kickboxing. It was an insane fight. But when Overeem fought that 7-foot giant, he took him down and smashed him in 2 minutes. So
you got Overeem over Volkov.
Yeah, that's a huge dog. I don't know. I mean, Overeem's been knocked out. He's old, but he's a demolition man. You can't disrespect demolition man. For 4 minutes and 50 seconds, he's beating Jairzinho Rosenstrike, who's the number 2 contender right now.
Well, it looks like that fight's right up the road from my house, too. It's right here in Vegas, right at the MGM, which is great. I mean, I'm looking at the MGM out my window. So
yeah, I'm also interested to see what Frankie Edgar looks like. I hope he doesn't get knocked out. He's making his debut to 135 pounds. I'm getting really nervous for that. So he's dropping in weight, and he's fighting Sandhagen. They're throwing him to the deep end of the pool, and Sandhagen's a bad dude. He just won by head kick knockout in his last fight against Marlon Moraes. He's one of the best to ever do it. Sandhagen, he's a Division III basketball player who's taken his timing and skills and gotten really good at boxing and really good at footwork and everything. You can just see that his athleticism as he's evolved in the game, the other guys just can't keep up with him. He's really flexible, he's got good timing, and I think he might highlight real Frankie Edgar.
So, one last thing, too, that I want to talk about. When it comes to MMA, obviously it means mixed martial arts, meaning that it has multiple different types, like Taekwondo, Jiu-Jitsu, all sorts of different martial arts inside of one arena, I guess. I don't know how I want to say that. But, over the years, what have you seen emerge as, the dominant art, the dominant martial art over the others? Is there one more than another? You are, I can't hear you. Can't hear you. Can't hear you, man. There you go. I think your AirPods died.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay, so back. Why don't you back up real quick, because none of that was heard. Are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm trying to switch over my audio real quick.
I can hear you. You're good. I can hear you just fine. First episode fuck-ups. Here we are. What's up? Are you there?
There we go. Can you hear me? Are we live?
I can hear you much better now. There we go.
Alright, we're live. We're back.
Alright, we're good. We're back. Hopefully, when I send you this equipment, it should help clean this up.
Yeah, exactly.
Backing up again, when I was talking about, what do you think is the most premier martial art that's emerged from the UFC and MMA, bringing them all together?
I think you saw waves, right? Everyone knows Gracies, and the Gracies were big with their jiu-jitsu. They were just murking wrestlers. And then you saw guys like Chuck Liddell come out, and they weren't wrestlers at all. They were really good kickboxers, but they learned how to sprawl. They could defend takedowns. And, then you see guys like Rory McDonald, who was a Canadian welterweight. He was never champion, but his biggest thing is he did everything well because he started making martial arts when he was 10 years old.
You got to talk closer to your computer.
What was that?
You got to talk closer to your computer, otherwise it doesn't get picked up. There we go.
Yeah, I'm struggling to hear you, bud.
Yeah. You know what? Why don't we just go ahead and wrap this first episode up? It seems that we're having some issues here recording. Hopefully I'll have better equipment over to Paul for the next time, so we will get it better next time. Again, thanks for listening to the first episode of Better Life with Jake and Paul. We'll be back. Episodes are going to be releasing every Wednesday. and we'll just be talking about different parlays and different bets to make. And just follow along. Let us know what your bets are, and if we win or if you win, and then we can talk shit to each other. Does that sound good? Great.
Yeah.
All right, Paul. Thanks for the time today. Everyone who's listening, thank you as well. We'll be back next week. I'll see you guys later.